Good afternoon, friends. We are learning our subject, machine learning, and in that we are learning module 3, that is modeling and evaluation. Now, here in the previous lecture, we have seen the holdout method and K-cross validation method of training, right? Means what we do is we are dividing the data in training and testing data as well as validation data, right? So this is what we have seen in the previous lecture. Now let us start with the third, that is the bootstrap sampling. What is that? Bootstrap sampling or simply bootstrapping is a popular way to identify training and test data sets from the input data set. It uses a technique of simple random sampling with replacement. In our previous subject, that was data mining, there we have seen this technique. But what is the meaning of it? That is, a selected object is not removed from the population. Means, say we are having a box wherein we are having 10 objects and we have to choose randomly. Then let us say that we are taking one, and then after taking that again we are putting it back into the box. Let me show you with the figure. Say this is the box, we can say, wherein the data is there or any objects are there, right? Now, what is the case that this SRSWR, that is simple random sampling with replacement. That is, you can say here, once we have taken one object, right? That is blue, you can say. Now, this and this blue, both are different color, okay? They are not the same. You can see that. Now, here what is the case that blue is being chosen, and next time also we can have the blue. Are you getting that? From this box, when we are taking the data and we are having the method that is SRSWR, whatever we have chosen, that will put back in the box, and that can be chosen next time also. Fine. If it is reverse, that is, if it is without replacement, then you can say every time unique color will come out of the box because we'll remove the object from the box. But that we are not talking of just now. That is just to show you the difference between both the method, that is without replacement and with replacement. Okay. So here, the technique of simple random sampling with replacement, that is a selected object is not removed from the population, is used, right, for drawing random samples. We have seen earlier that k-fold cross validation divides the data into separate partitions, say 10 partitions in case of 10-fold cross validation. Then it uses data instances from partition as test data and remaining partitions as the training data. Right? That is known to us. Unlike this approach, adapted in case of k-fold cross validation, bootstrapping randomly picks data instances from the input data set with the possibility of the same data instance to be picked multiple times. Now in the figure we can see this, right? This is input data set. See, different colors are given here, right? Bootstrap sample 1, where you can say that we are able to have the two black colors, then 1, 2, 3, 4 white colors. In the input data set, we were not having 4 white colors data, right? Still we are having the sample wherein we are having the 4 white color samples. How can it be? Because whatever is being chosen, that is again being put in the data set, right? Here also we can see the 4 white are there, right? Here we can say that this gray color, they are 3. Here in the input data set, they are 2 only, right? Same way over here, you can see that black is 2 only available, but when we have taken the sample, it is 3. How can it be 3? Because the data which is selected is again put back into the data set and again taken the random, right? It's very simple. This is called the bootstrap sampling. This essentially means that from the input data set having n data instances, bootstrapping can create one or more training data sets having n data instances, some of the data instances being repeated multiple times, right? As we have seen here, white, here also white, here gray, and here black, right? These are being repeated. This technique is particularly useful in case of input data sets of small size, that is, having very less number of data instances. So what's the difference between cross-validation and bootstrapping? It is a special variant of the holdout method called repeated holdout. Hence, uses stratified random sampling approach without replacement. Data set is divided into k random partitions with each partition containing approximately n by k number of unique data elements, where n is the total number of poles. Number of unique data elements where n is the total number of data elements and k is the total number of poles. What is that in case of bootstrapping? It is the technique. It uses the technique of simple random sampling with replacement. Here it is using the stratified random sampling, right? Here it uses the SRSWR, right? So the same data instance may be picked up multiple times, right? Here the whole definition is written. Otherwise, you can write the definition as 1 point. Second is you can consider the sampling approach. That is a way we used to have the feature and then after the difference, right? Here the table is given in the book, so I have put it for you. Otherwise, we can write it, if the differentiation is asked, you can always write it as feature. One is the definition, the second one is the replacement method. So that you can see it is stratified random sampling approach, and here it is random sampling with replacement, right? Then here the number of possible training or test data samples that can be drawn using this technique is finite. And here we can say in this technique, since elements can be repeated in the sample, possible number of training and test data samples is unlimited, right? So testing, training or test data samples, that can be the feature here, size of it, right? Here it is finite, here it is unlimited. Now, next thing what we want to learn for training models, that is lazy versus eager learner. See, in a particular class also, there are, say, lazy learners or we can say eager learners, right? So, what are they? Eager learning follows the general principle of machine learning. It tries to construct a generalized input independent target function during the model training phase. It follows the typical steps of machine learning, that is abstraction and generalization, and comes up with a trained model at the end of learning phase. Hence, when the data comes in for classification, the eager learner is ready with the model and does not need to refer back to the training data. Are you getting that? What is that abstraction and generalization and concept with the trained model, right? At the end of the learning phase. The model is trained. That is what is available here, right? And what will be there? The eager learner is ready with the model and doesn't need to refer back to training data, right? It is already trained, we want to say. Eager learners take more time in learning phase than lazy learners, right? Eager learners are, you can say, they are taking more time in learning than the lazy learners, right? The name itself suggests lazy, right? And eager. People who are eager, they read more, they try to search more, they try to learn more, right? Something like that. Some of the algorithms which adopt eager learning approach include decision tree, support vector machine, neural network, etc. Lazy learning, on the other hand, completely skips the abstraction and generalization process, as explained in context of a typical machine learning process. In that respect, strictly speaking, lazy learner doesn't learn anything. It uses the training data in exact and uses the knowledge to classify the unlabeled test data. Since lazy learning uses training data as is, it is also known as rote learning. That means memorization technique based on repetition. Due to its heavy dependency on the given training data instance, it is also known as instance learning. They are called non-parametric learning. Lazy learning is non-parametric learning. Lazy learners take very little time in training because not much of the training actually happens. However, it takes quite some time in classification as for each tuple of test data, a comparison-based assignment of label happens. One of the most popular algorithm for lazy learning is k-nearest neighbor. Now we have talked of that lazy learner is non-parametric learning, right? So we would like to know about parametric and non-parametric learning models. So parametric learning models have finite number of parameters. In case of non-parametric models, quite contradicting to its name, the number of parameters is potentially infinite. Models such as linear regression and support vector machine, since the coefficient form the learning parameters, they are fixed in size. Hence, these models are clubbed as parametric. On the other hand, in case of models such as k-nearest neighbor and decision tree, number of parameter grows with the size of training data. Hence, they are considered as non-parametric learning models. Now, next thing what we want to learn is model representation and its interpretability. The goal of supervised learning is to learn or derive a target function which can best determine the target variable from the set of input variables. A key consideration in learning the target function from training data is the extent of generalization. What we are doing is learning target function from the training data. Is the extent of generalization. This is because The input data is just a limited, specific view, and the new unknown data in the test data set may be differing quite a bit from the training data. Fitness or a target function approximated by a learning algorithm determines how correctly it is able to classify a set of data it has never seen. So for that, we consider underfitting, overfitting, and bias variance trade-off, right? So we would like to know about that. Underfitting. What does that mean? The name itself suggests underfit, right? Not completely fit. If the target function is kept too simple, it may not be able to capture the essential nuances and represent the underlying data well. A typical case of underfitting may occur when trying to represent a nonlinear data with a linear model, as demonstrated by both cases of underfitting in the figure. Let me see the figure. This is underfit. How can you say it is underfit? The data is actually nonlinear, right? But we are trying to have the fitting curve that is linear. And it is not able to fit the data, right? Only two data it is able to fit and not others. This is called the underfit, right? It is called underfit. This is balance fit. That is, it is having at least more than this one. And you can say for overfit, whatever is there, less than that, right? So that is the balance fit. Overfit, where you can say almost all data are fit on the curve, right? Same way here we can say underfit, right? Here we can say underfit. Then here we can say balance fit. That is for this curve, we can say that most of the data are fit inside that curve. Overfit, where you can say that many data is being fit under that curve, right? So you can understand underfit, balance fit, overfit, right? Or this way you can say this is underfit, this is balance fit, and this is overfit, right? So many times underfitting happens due to unavailability of sufficient training data. If data is not there, how can we fit it for any particular curve, isn't it? Underfitting results in both poor performance with training data as well as poor generalization to test data. Underfitting can be avoided by using more training data, and the second way is reducing features by effective feature selection. So this is what we have seen for underfit, balance fit, overfit, right? Now we want to know overfitting. In the figure we have already seen, right? What is overfitting? Okay. So overfitting, that means we are trying to fit almost all the data for that particular curve or line or whatsoever, right? So overfitting refers to a situation where the model has been designed in such a way that it emulates the training data too closely. In such a case, any specific deviation in the training data, like noise or outliers, gets embedded in that model. It adversely impacts the performance of the model on the test data. Overfitting in many cases occur as a result of trying to fit an excessively complex model closely to match the training data, as in the figure. Like here, try to overfit the data. The target function in these cases tries to make sure all training data points are correctly partitioned by the decision boundary. However, more often than not, this exact nature is not replicated in the unknown test data. Hence, the target function results in wrong classification in the test data. Overfitting results in good performance with training data set but poor generalization and hence poor performance with the test data set. Overfitting can be avoided by using resampling techniques like K-fold cross validation, foldback of a validation data set, and we can say the third way is remove the nodes which have little or no predictive power for the given machine learning problem. Both underfitting and overfitting result in poor classification quality, which is reflected by low classification accuracy. Now, the third thing which we would like to see is bias, variance trade-off. In supervised learning, the class value assigned by the learning model will, based on the training data, may differ from the actual class value. This error in learning can be of two types: errors due to bias and error due to variance. Let us see errors due to bias. Errors due to bias arise from simplifying assumptions made by the model to make the target function less complex or easier to learn. In short, it is due to underfitting to model, right? It is due to underfitting of the model. Parametric models generally have high bias, making them easier to understand or interpret and faster to learn. These algorithms have poor performance on data sets, which are complex in nature and do not align with the simplifying assumptions made by the algorithm. Underfitting results in high bias. Errors due to variance. Errors due to variance occur from difference in training data sets used to train the model. Different training data sets are used to train the model. Ideally, the difference in the data sets should not be significant and the model trained using different training data sets should not be too different. However, in case of overfitting, since the model closely matches the training data, even a small difference in training data gets magnified in the model. So, due to bias, due to variance, what happens, that's what we have seen. Now we would like to see the bias variance trade-off. So the problems in the training model can either happen because the model is too simple and hence fails to interpret the data grossly, or the model is extremely complex and magnifies even small differences in the training data. As is quite understandable, increasing the bias will decrease the variance and increasing the variance will decrease the bias. On one hand, parametric algorithms are generally seen to demonstrate high bias but low variance. On the other hand, non-parametric algorithms demonstrate low bias and high variance. As we can observe in the figure, the best solution is to have a model with low bias as well as with low variance. However, that may not be possible in reality, right? Here we can say this is for low variance, this is for high variance and high bias, right? This is for low bias, right? This is for low bias and low variance and high variance, right? Hence, the goal of supervised machine learning is to achieve a balance between bias and variance, right? What we can see is uh, the best solution is to have a model with low bias as well as low variance. However, that is not possible in reality. The figures we have seen. Now, the learning algorithm chosen and the user parameters which can be configured helps in striking the trade-off between bias and variance. For example, in a popular supervised algorithm, that is k nearest neighbors, the user configurable parameter k can be used to do the trade-off between the bias and variance. On one hand, when k is decreased, the model becomes simpler and fit and bias increases. On the other hand, when the value of k is increased, the variance is decreasing. So now we would like to evaluate the performance of a model. In supervised learning, one major task is classification. The responsibility of the classification model is to assign class label to the target feature based on the value of the predictor features. For example, in the problem of predicting the win or loss in cricket match, the classifier will assign a class value, win or loss, to target feature based on the values of other features, like whether the team won the toss, number of spinners in the team, number of wins the team had in the tournament, etc. To evaluate the performance of the model, the number of correct classifications or predictions made by the model has to be recorded. A classification is said to be correct if, say for example, in the given problem, it has been predicted by the model that the team will win and it has actually won. There are four possibilities with regard to cricket match win or loss prediction. So what are they? The model predicted win and the team won. The model predicted win and the team lost. The model predicted loss and the team won. The model predicted loss and the team lost, right? In this problem, obvious class of interest is win. Obviously, in that only we are interested. The first case, that is the model predicted win and the team won, is a case where model has correctly classified the data instances as the class of interest. And these cases are referred to as true positive cases. The second case, that is the model predicted win and the team lost. That means wrong, right? Wrong cases, or you can say that false positive, falsely detected positive, right? Falsely detected the team has won. So what we say is, it is the case where model incorrectly classified the data instance as a class of interest, right? So that is referred to as false positive. The third case, that is the model predicted loss and the team won. That means false negative. Falsely negative is being chosen, right? Four cases, the model predicted loss and the team lost. That is correctly lost, right? Correct loss, or we can say it is considered as the true negative cases. Here we can say when this arrow is in the center of the circle, we can say person win, right? And the title is also win. So you can say it is true positive. Here we can say that false positive. That means arrow is not in the center. So person hasn't won the match, as well as the system also has detected it is lost. So it is true. Uh, what we can say is it is false positive, right? Falsely positive. Here what do we say is model predicted win and team lost, right? Here not only inside this circle, but we can say it should not be this, okay? What is the case? That team lost, but predicted win, right? Predicted win. It is predicted win, but it is actually lost, right? So you can say it is false positive, right? No, it should be uh, model predicted win, right? So it should be win and actually loss, right? Yeah, actual outcome is only there, right? So actual outcome is loss, but model predicted win. Here, these two cases are of win. Okay, these two cases of are win. What we can say is this is the actual outcome. This is the actual outcome. So what we say is this is for win, right? I have written here. Sorry, I forgot to show you. This is for win cases. Okay. So what is the case? That actual outcome say that it is win. Actual outcome says it is win, and you can say it is win only. So it is true positive. Here what is the case? That actual outcome is loss. But But what we say is it is predicted win. So it is false positive. Falsely it is said that it is win. Right? Positive, that means we used to say that whatever we want, here we want to have the win. So that is the positive, isn't it? Positive and negative. Win is positive, and we can say loss is negative, right? Win is positive and loss is negative. So for this both are the conditions for win, where model has predicted the win. Okay. Uh, Actually it is win, but model has predicted what? That is loss in this case, right? Actually actual outcome is loss. Actual outcome is loss, but the model has predicted win, right? This is actual outcome and this is predicted one, fine. So predicted one is positive, right? But wrongly positive. So it is false positive. Hope you understood. This is win, this is loss, this is actual outcome, right? Actual outcome. And what is the case? That prediction is this one. Prediction is this one, that is win. For that we can say that model has predicted wrong. So false. And what it has given? It has given win. So it is positive. So false positive. Okay. Here you can see this is loss. This is loss, right? What that when this arrow is there in the center, at that time only we win. So this arrow is loss and this is predicted also loss. So what do we say? It is false negative. And what about this is, you can say that true negative. That means you can say that it is in the center and you can say that it is loss, right? Hope you understood. This is actual outcome, this is predicted one, right? Predicted one, is this loss? No, it is not loss. So what do we mean to say is true positive, true negative, false positive and false negative, right? So that is what is there. Loss means negative, win means positive, right? So for any classification model, model accuracy is given by the total number of correct classifications, true positive and true negative, right? Divided by the total number of classifications done. Accuracy, I'm saying you. Matrix containing correct and incorrect predictions in the form of TPs and FPs. FNs and TNs is known as the confusion matrix. The win or loss prediction of cricket match has two classes of interest, win and loss. For that reason, it will generate 2 by 2 matrix, and that is the confusion matrix. For a classification problem involving T classes, the confusion matrix would be 3 cos 3, right? So now, what's the case? Classifier evaluation matrix, accuracy, error rate, sensitivity, specificity, right? So for that we can say this is the confusion matrix. Okay, this is the confusion matrix. What do we say is the C, this is the negative C, right? This is the C, this is the negative C, right? Actual and predicted. Here we are having actual, here we are having the predicted one, right? So where the actual and predicted one both are positive, that is say TP. Actual is correct and what we say predicted one is the negative, that is false negative, right? That way we are having FP and TN, okay? TP, FN, FP, TN. Fine. Okay. Now based on that, we can find these parameters. They are accuracy, error rate, sensitivity, and specificity. So what is about the classifier accuracy? It is, we can say, percentage of test set tuples that are correctly classified. And for that, we can say TP plus TN upon all. For error rate, it is 1 minus accuracy, or we can say FP plus FN upon all, right? Class imbalance problem, one class may be rare. That's, as for example, fraud, or HIV positive. Significant majority of the negative class and minority of the positive class. Sensitivity, it is true positive recognition rate. So that is TP by P. P is this total of TP and FN, right? So here we can say specificity, that is true negative recognition rate, and that is we can say specificity is Tn by N, right? This is what we should find. TP is positive, corona positive, really positive. Tn is corona positive, what we can say, but it is negative and really negative, right? Positive, but really it is negative, and Fn is negative, really positive, right? Precision, that is we can say Tp upon Tp plus Fp. What is the precision? That is exactness. That is what percentage of tuples that the classifier labeled as positive are actually positive. Recall, that is completeness. What percentage of positive tuples did the classifier label as positive? That is Tp upon Tp plus Fn. Here it was Tp plus Fp, here it is Tp plus Fn, right? For F measure, what do we say? Harmonic mean precision and recall. For that we can say F measure is 2 multiplied by precision into recall upon precision plus recall. F beta, that is the weighted measure of the precision, and recall assigns beta times as much weight to recall as to precision, and that is equal to 1 plus beta square into precision into recall upon beta square into precision plus recall. So we can take the example of this win and loss only, right, of cricket match. So we can see the matrix is given to us, that is 2 by 2, as we are having two classes, that is win and loss only. So here we can say this is actual win, this is actual loss, and this is predicted win, predicted loss, right? So here we can say TP is 85, FP is 4, FN is 2, and TN is 9. So now we would like to calculate each and every performance parameter. So what are they? First is accuracy. So accuracy is TP plus Fn upon all, TP plus Tn upon all, that is TP plus Fp plus Fn plus Tn. And that is equal to 85 plus 9 divided by 85 plus 4 plus 2 plus 9. Right? So that comes out to be 94%. This is model accuracy. The algorithms are being compared using these parameters. That is model accuracy, error rate, specificity, sensitivity, F measure, right? Now, error rate. The percentage of misclassifications is indicated using error rate, which is measured as error rate is equal to Fp plus Fn upon Tp plus Fp plus Fn plus Tn. So that comes out to be 4 plus 2 divided by 85 plus 4 plus 2 plus 9. That is equal to 6 upon 100, or otherwise 1 minus model accuracy. Now, kappa value of a model indicates the adjusted model accuracy. It is calculated using the formula, that is K is equal to PA minus P of ER upon 1 minus P of ER. What is that? P of A is proportion of observed agreement between actual and predicted in overall data set. What that means? The equation is Tp plus Tn upon Tp plus Fp plus Fn plus Tn. P of PR, that is proportion of expected agreement between actual and predicted data, both in case of class of interest as well as the other classes. So the equation is here, right? So we put the equation and find the value. We can say that is what? That is 0.7886. And what about the kappa value? I mean, for PA, for PPR, we find the different values and then after put it in the equation of kappa value and we are finding it as 0.7162. Kappa value can be 1 at the maximum, which represents perfect agreement between models, prediction and actual values. So for sensitivity, sensitivity of the model measures the proportion of TP examples or positive cases which were correctly classified, and that is equal to TP upon TP plus Fn. So we'll be having 85 upon 85 plus 2 and that is equal to 97.7. Specificity. Specificity of the model measures the proportion of negative examples which have been correctly classified. Specificity is equal to Tn upon Tn plus Fp and that is equal to 9 by 9 plus 4 and that is equal to 9 by 13. So that is equal to 69.2%. Precision. Okay, for that what do we say? Precision indicates the reliability of the model in predicting a class of interest when the model is related to win or loss prediction of cricket. Precision indicates how often it predicts the win correctly. In the context of our confusion matrix for the cricket match, prediction problem, the precision will be equal to TP upon TP plus FP, that is equal to F 85 upon 85 plus 4 and that is equal to 95.5. Recall. For that we can say it indicates the proportion of correct predictions of true positives to the total number of positives. So it is, we can say TP upon TP plus Fn and that is equal to 97%. F measure. It is the measure which combines the precision and recall. It takes the harmonic mean of precision and recall calculated as 2 multiplied by precision into recall upon precision plus recall. So we can find the value and that comes out to be 96.6. Here is one more example. You can calculate yourself and you can have the idea what should be the precision, recall, kappa value, and we can see that accuracy, all the parameters you need to find yourself for this particular table. Okay, and that's all for today. In the next lecture, we'll see how to improve the performance of a model.